The Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privileges of the floor will please retire to the gallery. Good morning, senators. Good morning, guests. The senators and all in attendance, if you are able, please stand. We will be led in prayer this morning by the Reverend Chet Bajeron of Buffalo Baptist Church of Buffalo Junction. The Pledge of Allegiance will be said. We will be led by Senate Page Sophia Hightower of Chase City, and so we will remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Please pray with me. Almighty God, thank you for bringing everyone here today. We get to live in this free country through your provision and grace. We acknowledge that you are the one who creates and sustains, and everything you have given us in your word is true. Lord, please grant wisdom and strength to every leader and worker in this capital as they lead through a dark time. However, we trust that your light shines the brightest through Jesus. May the great counselor you give us through the risen one direct each decision and discussion today. Lastly, thank you, Lord, for those here who sacrifice more than we know to serve us in the free state of Virginia. May their efforts not go unnoticed. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk will call the roll. All those present, please vote aye. The clerk will close the roll.
You have a quorum, Madam President. Senate Journal for Wednesday, February 8th, 2023.
The senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley, moves that the reading of the journal be waived. All in favor of waiving the reading of the journal will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 37, noes 2.
Ayes 37, noes 2. The reading of the journal is waived. The clerk will report any communications from the House of Delegates. Chair calls on the senior senator from Fairfax County, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I move that we waive the reading of the communications from the House.
The question is, shall the reading of the communications be waived? All those in favor of waiving the reading of the communication from the House of Delegates will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 32, noes 7.
Ayes 32, noes 7. The reading of the journal is waived. The clerk will report any communications from the governor.
I do not have any, Madam President.
We have arrived at the time in our morning hour when we will hear who all of you wonderful guests are. And the normal procedure is that your senator will stand and speak about you, and I hope that you stand at that time. And after he gives or she gives the remarks, then I will give mine, and we will hold our applause until after I give my remarks. And so with that, I shall call upon Senator Ruff, the gentleman from Mecklenburg County.
Thank you, Madam President. I would ask you to give a warm welcome to the Senate, to our pastor who gave the invocation this morning, the Reverend Bergeron, who serves Buffalo Baptist Church in Buffalo Junction. He is accompanied in the gallery by his wife, Nicole, his children, Caden, Grant, Wesley, and Grace Lynn, and church member and family friend and my former aide, Tammy Mulcahy.
Good afternoon and welcome to all of you. Thank you for traveling such a long way, and thank you, Reverend, for that wonderful prayer. And thank you for the sacrifices that you certainly make in the community, and Mrs. Bergeron as well. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Chair calls on Senator Lewis, the gentleman from Accomack.
Madam President, rise for the purpose of an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, members of the Senate, visiting with us in the gallery today are members of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. These members hail from across the state and come to the General Assembly to urge us to commit to policies that protect and enhance the health of our streams and to invest in clean water programs to ensure that the Chesapeake Bay is restored. I would urge everyone to please give them the warm welcome of the Senate.
Good morning to you, or afternoon, I should say. Thank you for being here, and thank you for helping our dear Chesapeake Bay, as we know the ecosystem is very important to, it's important to the Commonwealth, of course, and the very economics that it brings to our great Commonwealth. So we thank you for your efforts in that. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Chair recognizes Senator Cosgrove, the senior senator from Chesapeake.
Well, good afternoon, Madam President.
Good afternoon.
I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I'm delighted today to have a group here visiting from my city of Chesapeake. Aspire is a program that falls under the umbrella of Children Today, Leaders Tomorrow, a youth leadership program developed by Sheriff Jim O'Sullivan in the city of Chesapeake. The program is focused on the development of leadership skills of young female high school students from each high school in the city of Chesapeake by reinforcing ethics, self-esteem, and public service. The core values of Aspire program are defined in the following acronym: attitude, self-esteem, public service, integrity, responsibility, and empowerment. The primary goal of Aspire is to combine various skills-driven workshops, exposure to prominent female role models and public officials, as well as instilling community values, team-building concepts, and structured activities centered on preparing these young women to meet the challenges of tomorrow. Now, upon fulfilling their commitment to the 2-year program, these young ladies will receive a $1,000 scholarship to further their education after graduating high school. Madam President, I met with these young ladies today. We had a nice long talk, and I bragged on you. I did, and I bragged on Senator Lucas. Because, ladies, if you want to see two women who are having a massive impact on the Commonwealth of Virginia, Senator Lucas, would you please stand up, Senator Lucas, so you see you? Wait a minute. This is Senator Lucas. She is the President Pro Tem of the Senate of Virginia. And here we have our Lieutenant Governor, Winsome Sears, an immigrant, a business owner, and a United States Marine, and now our Lieutenant Governor. Ladies, there's nothing stopping you from doing exactly what these ladies have done and are doing right now. So very briefly, I'm going to introduce the ladies who are here with us today. We have Olivia Bradford, Shenra Brown, Claire Connor, Diamond Dallas Townsend, Dania Ellis Garland, Lily Lee, Kiana Mason, Gabrielle McCutcheon, Imani Muzak, and Sophia Patino. And their chaperones, which are very important, Lisa Zanzali, Kendra Matthews-Taylor, and Jenny Stafford. Madam President, I hope that you will give them a couple of words of welcome and encouragement and give them the warmest welcome of the Senate of Virginia.
Good afternoon, ladies. We thank you for being here. And indeed, the senator said that you're children today and leaders tomorrow. I would argue that you are leaders today because you never know who is watching. You never know who aspires to be what you are. And that would truly be leaders. And so I say to you, of the 7 virtues that I just heard your organization tries to imbibe in you, I would say integrity is the most important. Because if you lose your good name, you have lost everything. So always aspire for integrity, and the rest will follow. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. They're ready. Chair recognizes the senior senator from Fairfax County, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I move that we suspend the rules and grant the privileges of the floor to our special guests.
The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the privileges of the floor granted to our special guests? All those in favor of that motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The rules are suspended. The privileges of the floor are granted. The chair recognizes
Louise.
the senator from Northern Chesapeake and the senator from Portsmouth, Senators Spruill and Lucas, for the privilege and the purpose of presenting our special guests, as well as the senior senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Madam President, visiting with us today in the capital are students from Norfolk State University, accompanied by the President, Dr. Gaston, and members of the facilities, the staff. Norfolk State was founded in 1935 during the midst of a Great Depression. Pronounced at that time Norfolk Union of Virginia University. 7 years later, in 1942, the General Assembly passed an act that mandated to establish to become part of Virginia State College. At that time, Madam President, the school colors were blue and white. In 1965, when I was in the band at Norfolk State, at that time, blue and white. But then, through great determination, support from the state, the college was able to expand, become an independent school under Virginia State College. In 1969, and further obtaining university status in 1979. Today, these students are spending their days speaking with the elected officials, sharing their personal experience, what happened in the college and around the General Assembly. The award-winning Norfolk State College marching band was founded in 1975 and has made a name for itself as one of the best marching bands in this country. For example, the name, madam, for example, like the name that so is famous that everybody know about. For example, if I say one word, watch what happens. Behold.
The green and gold.
That's it. Madam, with this name, Norfolk State Band who participate in Rosebud Parade have made strides all over the country. They have made Norfolk State, have made Virginia, and our country's great. Madam, will you please read the resolution?
Senate Joint Resolution Number 283, commending the Norfolk State University Spartan Legion Marching Band. Whereas the Norfolk State University Spartan Legion Marching Band, one of the premier marching bands in the country, performed at the Tournament of Roses Parade in Pasadena, California in 2023. And whereas, founded in 1975, the Legion has energized and entertained fans across the Commonwealth and nation for nearly a half-century. And whereas the highly proficient musical numbers of the Legion are elevated by the band's regal attire and by the synchronicity and precision of its marching, which incorporates high stepping, the rigid strut, the glide, and military style. And whereas the various honors and accolades the Legion has earned over the years serve as testaments to the power of the band's performances and the Spartan-like discipline and devotion of its members. And whereas the performance of the Legion in the 2023 Tournament of Roses Parade marked the program's first appearance at the storied and prestigious national event and was a source of great pride and jubilation for the Norfolk community. And whereas, in addition to the Tournament of Roses Parade, the Legion has performed at many high-profile events in recent years, including President Barack Obama's campaign rally in Norfolk and the Honda Battle of the Bands Invitational Showcase. And whereas the Legion was notably the inaugural host of the annual Historically Black Colleges and Universities Band Battle Fest, which showcases the top HBCU marching bands in the country. And whereas the success of the Legion is the result of the leadership of band director William H. Bethea and the hard work and dedication of the band's 250 staff and student musicians, dancers, and flags. And whereas the Legion promises to continue its tradition of excellence and its ever upward ascent to musical mastery, engendering tremendous respect and adulation among members of the communities of Norfolk State University, Norfolk, and the Commonwealth. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate, the House of Delegates concurring, that the General Assembly hereby commend the Norfolk State University Spartan Legion Marching Band for its performance at the 2023 Tournament of Roses Parade in Pasadena, California. And be it resolved further that the Clerk of the Senate prepare a copy of this resolution for presentation to William H. Bethea, Director of the Norfolk State University Spartan Legion Marching Band, as an expression of the General Assembly's admiration for the band's achievements and best wishes in its future endeavors.
Please join me in the well of the Senate. We thank you so very much for your university and for the band. And the senator has just told us that the school was formed during the Great Depression. How can you not succeed having been formed during the Great Depression? Here you are today, still standing, still thriving, still succeeding, still educating, still inspiring. Thank you so very much for this school, this wonderful school. And there's something about music that just lifts the soul, doesn't it? And to see the band high step helps too. So thank you very much. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward. And thank you very much. Present to you to present. Oh, there's it. That's the Senate will be temporarily at ease. Will return to order. Chair calls on Senator McClellan, the senior senator from Richmond.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
We are joined by students from another one of Virginia's illustrious historically black colleges, and that is Virginia Union University, which was founded in 1865 as the Richmond Theological Institute on the grounds of the former Lumpkin slave jail. In its over 150 years, Virginia Union has relentlessly pursued its mission of providing a nurturing, intellectually challenging, and spiritually enriching environment for learning, empowering students to develop strong moral values for success, and developing scholars, leaders, and lifelong learners of a global society. The proof of Virginia Union's success is found in its illustrious alumni, as well as its bright students that are here today. Virginia Union hosts among its alumni former Governor Doug Wilder, the late Congressman Donald McEachin, former Senators Henry Marsh and Benjamin Lambert, Delegates Mamie Bacote, former Richmond Mayor and Delegate Dwight Jones, and current delegates Dolores McQuinn, Luke Torian, Marcia Price, and Adarius Clark, along with civil rights heroes Spotswood Robinson, Wyatt T. Walker, and the Richmond 34. We had the opportunity to meet with these students this morning, and I am confident that they will surpass the achievements of the alumni that I just read, and I ask that we give them a warm Senate welcome. They're also here joined by their president, Dr. Hakeem Lucas.
Hello, and good afternoon to all of you and Dr. Hakeem. And what you have heard is that you are standing on the shoulders of giants. And one day, we hope that you will be part of the giants on whom others will stand. And so it is up to you to keep that foundation straight and illustrious and have a good name for your school. Continue. Thank you, Dr. Hakeem, and thank you, other staff and faculty. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Chair recognizes Senator Obenshain.
Madam President, I rise for two introductions.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, first of all, I want to draw your attention and ask you to extend the warm welcome of the Senate to two guests up in the gallery today, one of whom is the father of my seatmate, Bill Holtzman. Bill is a successful business person, a leader, not just in the Shenandoah Valley and beyond. He's a philanthropist, somebody who served with my wife on the board at Virginia Tech, and he's a good friend and good friend to many here in the chamber, and he's accompanied today by his trusted adjutant, Rick Kuntz, who likewise is a community leader. He served 16 years on the Shenandoah County School Board and is a leader in Shenandoah County. So, Madam President, I would ask that you extend the warm welcome of the Senate to Bill Holtzman and to Rick Kuntz.
Please rise if you are able. Gentlemen, we thank you for coming, and we know of the many jobs, Mr. Holtzman, that you have created in our great Commonwealth, and we thank you for that. And thank you, Mr. Kuntz, for your community service, indeed, on the school board, because that's what it is. It's service. Thank you for being a part of that. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate.
Madam President.
Again, Senator Obenshain.
Thank you very much. Madam President, also with us in the gallery today are a group of moms. These are mothers and family members of victims of the fentanyl poisoning that is taking place across the country. This group of fentanyl moms are coming to the halls of the Capitol today to advocate for tougher laws to protect others so that others aren't going to have to walk the same path that they've had to walk. They are tremendous advocates. They are wonderful leaders in their community. It is awful that they have to lead this lonely, sometimes, fight. So this group is led by my friend and my constituent, Faith Silvera. And Madam President, I would ask that you and the members of the Senate extend our warmest welcome to these mothers.
Good afternoon, mothers. We are so truly sorry that you are here under these circumstances. We wish it could have been a happier time. You're indeed a part of a group that no one wishes to be, which is to see their child go on ahead of them. And we thank you, though, that you are here to remind us of this terrible, dreadful poison that's in our community, in our homes, and to maybe stop it from happening to someone else. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing that and for calling attention to this, again, this wicked evil among us. Senators, please give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Chair recognizes Senator Deeds, the gentleman from Charlottesville.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
We are joined in the gallery by a group of inquisitive middle school students from Perry McClure Middle School in the city of Buena Vista. I'd ask that, Madam President, you give them the warm greetings of the Senate.
Good afternoon again to you. And we hear that you are scholars among us from your civics class. And we know that you will continue to do well because our Commonwealth needs you. We're glad to have you. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Chair recognizes Senator Normand, the gentleman from James City County.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, frequently on the floor of the Senate and our other interactions, we talk about civic engagement and how we can encourage some younger generations to become more civically engaged in our process. When I had the privilege of teaching at William & Mary for a number of years, I never lost sight of the fact that grades were very important to these young people. And I used to share with the classes that my idea of what would be a successful semester is if I could convince one student out of every class to become engaged in public service, then I would feel we had a wonderful semester. In the gallery today, we have a group of young people who are here from Virginia 21. And as everyone in this body knows, that this is a group of college students who have chosen and made a decision to become more involved and more engaged in the civics of our Commonwealth. And it is really very heartening to me to see them to make that commitment and to invest their time and energy. And I would appreciate it if you would extend a very warm welcome to these students from Virginia 21.
Good afternoon to you. And I heard the senator say something so very profound, that you made a decision. You made a decision, he said, to invest your time and energy in your great Commonwealth. Thank you for doing that. So many others have not made that decision, and here you are at your age doing just that. Thank you again. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Chair recognizes Senator Hashmi, the senior senator from Chesterfield.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for two introductions.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Joining us in the gallery are two very special friends of mine, but I want to share a little bit about why they're here today. This year, the Virginia Academy of Science will celebrate its centennial. It began to serve the Commonwealth in 1923, and we do, in fact, have a commending resolution on the floor today that we will be agreeing to. But over these 100 years years, they have helped to push for the opening of our Virginia State Parks, which happened in 1936. They launched the Junior Academy of Science in 1941, and in 1970, they helped to create the Science Museum of Virginia. Quite a list of accomplishments over these past 100 years. Over the years, they've also funded thousands of dollars for science research. The Academy members have educated millions of students. They've advised governors and legislators and will continue to do that important work. So joining us today are one representative and a lovely wife. With us today is Dr. Richard Groover, who is also the Centennial Chairperson, and his wife, Patty Groover, is here as well. I'm sorry, Patty Jackson is here as well. And I would ask that we extend the warm welcome of the Senate to both of them.
Thank you, Dr. Grover and wife, for coming. And what a list of extraordinary accomplishments your group has endeavored to put forward. Thank you for continuing to do that. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Madam President. I have another introduction. Joining us today in the gallery are some members of the Virginia Governmental Employees Association. VGEA is a voluntary, nonpartisan advocacy organization for current, retired, and future public employees in the Commonwealth of Virginia. These public servants are here today advocating for competitive compensation and flexible work opportunities in order to help all of us address the Commonwealth's long-standing recruitment and retention issues. VGEA is also hosting their first ever legislative reception this evening at the Credit Union House from 5:30 until 7 this evening, so please do consider joining them for this reception, and I ask that we give the warm welcome of the Senate.
Good afternoon to you, and thank you for coming and for your advocacy work. Indeed, we need to hear from everyone so that we can understand all the needs, all the issues. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Is there any other business to come before the morning hour? Hearing none, the clerk will call the calendar.
Senate calendar for Thursday, February 9th, 2023. Uncontested calendar, House bills on second reading.
Chair recognizes the senior senator from Fairfax County, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I move that all House bills on the second reading on the uncontested and regular calendar, it's pages 1 through 6, and House Bill 1369 through 2362, that the rules be suspended and the second constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with.
The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the second reading of the titles of House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 1 through 6, and House Bills 1369 through House Bill 2362, be dispensed with? All in favor of that motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The reading of the titles is dispensed with. Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I move that those said House bills be passed by for the day.
The question is, shall the House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars now on their third reading be passed by for the day? All in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills will go by for the day.
Uncontested calendar, Senate bill on second reading. Senate Bill 800.
Chair recognizes Senator Howell, the gentlelady from Northern Fairfax County.
Thank you. I move that we pass by temporarily Senate Bill 800.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 800 be passed by temporarily. Yeah. Those in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The bill passes by temporarily. Chair again recognizes Senator Sasslaw.
Memorial resolutions.
Madam President, I move that the memorial resolutions on pages 7 through 9, HJR 583 through SR 118, be considered in a block in the usual manner, waiving the reading of the resolutions thereof, with the understanding any senator desiring to remove resolution from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the title of the resolution.
The question is, shall the memorial resolutions on pages 7 through 9, House Joint Resolution 583 through Senate Resolution 118, be considered in the block in the usual manner, waiving the reading of the resolutions thereof, with the understanding that any senator desiring a resolution to be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number, the title of the resolution. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The resolutions are before us in the block. The clerk will read the titles of the memorial resolutions.
House Joint Resolution 583, celebrating the life of Joseph Edward Carey, Sr. House Joint Resolution 596, celebrating the life of Martin L. Williams. House Joint Resolution 601, celebrating the life of the Honorable Ashton Donald McEachin.
Madam President.
Chair recognizes the senior senator from Richmond, Senator McClellan.
Could HJR 601 come out of the block, please?
Without objection, HJR 601 is out of the block.
House Joint Resolution 606, celebrating the life of Lewis Ray Jones. House Joint Resolution 609, celebrating the life of the Reverend Monsignor Joseph Patrick Lehman III. House Joint Resolution.
President.
Chair recognizes Senator Suderline, the gentleman from Roanoke County.
Can HJ 609 come out of the block and by for the week?
Without objection, House Joint Resolution 609 is out of the block and by for the week.
House Joint Resolution 610, celebrating the life of Nancy Houck Rothfuss. House Joint Resolution 611, celebrating the life of James Winston Adams, Jr. House Joint Resolution 613, celebrating the life of Carrie Joseph Donnelly. House Joint Resolution 614, celebrating the life of Thomas Lewis Darden, Sr. Senate Joint Resolution 289, celebrating the life of the Honorable John Spence Reed.
Madam President.
Chair recognizes Senator Donovan, the gentlelady from Enrico.
Thank you, Madam President. Can Senate Joint Resolution 289 come out of the block, please?
Without objection, Senate Joint Resolution 289 is out of the block.
Senate Joint Resolution 302, celebrating the life of William Henry Gill. Senate Joint Resolution 303, celebrating the life of Nancy Hirsch Ingram. Senate Joint Resolution 305, celebrating the life of the Honorable Ashton Donald McEachin.
Madam President.
Chair again recognizes the senior senator from Richmond, Senator McClellan.
Thank you. Could Senate Joint Resolution 305 come out of the block, please?
Without objection, Senate Joint Resolution 305 is out of the block.
Senate Joint Resolution 307, celebrating the life of the Honorable Dale Hutter Harris. Senate Joint Resolution 311, celebrating the life of Carrie Lynn Burkholder Marston. Senate Joint Resolution 316, celebrating the life of Bruce Hunter Nielsen. Senate Resolution 118, celebrating the life of Glancy Spain, Jr.
Madam, could 307 come out of the block, please?
Without objection, Senate Joint Resolution 307 is out of the block. Accepting House Joint Resolution 601, House Joint Resolution 609, and Senate Joint Resolutions 289, 305, and 307, the resolutions will be agreed to in the usual manner. All those in favor of agreeing to the memorial resolutions, please rise. The resolutions are agreed to.
House Joint Resolution 601.
Chair calls on the senior senator from Richmond, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the resolution pass. And speaking to the resolution.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. This one's a tough one. This one is a tough one. I first met Donald McEachin when I was in college. At the University of Richmond, I was a Cigna Scholar, which is a program for African American students. And he and his law partners were mentors to the scholars. And I remember as a young lawyer getting to know him even better. I remember the commercials and his big booming voice where he would say that McEachin and G was the co-holder of the largest personal injury settlement in Virginia history. And how, particularly with what is now the Hill Tucker Bar Association, what was then the Richmond Old Dominion Bar Association, they were always present. When he ran for Attorney General in 2001, I was chair of the 3rd Congressional District Democratic Committee. So whenever they were in the 3rd District, which at that time stretched from Richmond to Portsmouth, I would campaign with them. This big bear of a man who was physically intimidating, but was a giant teddy bear. And I would watch him interact with people. And that election didn't go the way he wanted it to, but he didn't give up. In 2005, we were both elected to the House of Delegates. It was his second tour, and we got to be colleagues. And watching him on the floor down the hall was incredible. And I aspired one day to be as good an order. I knew I'd never be the same because we were very different personalities, different styles, but I thought, I hope I can hold people's attention the way he did. And he moved over to the Senate, and we partnered on a wide variety of issues. Everything from fighting predatory lenders to criminal justice reform. And when he got elected to Congress and I had the honor to succeed him, he was tickled. And he would love, as we were out at joint appearances, to remind me of the legacy of the 9th Senate District, which was held by J. Sargent Reynolds, Benjamin Lambert, Doug Wilder, him. And he would always get this twinkle in his eye, and he'd say, she's smarter than the rest of us, and she does everything in heels. And I would remind people I could never fill his shoes. And then I would remind people the legacy that he was upholding in the 4th Congressional District, the district in which my mom lived, still lives, and the district that sent the first African American to Congress from Virginia, John Mercer Langston. And while he was gone from this body, he paid close attention to what we were doing. He paid close attention to what was happening in the community. And often he would call, and we would gossip, or we'd talk about what was happening. We'd partner on legislation. And even when he was sick, he would not let that keep him down. I'm convinced that public service kept him alive longer than he otherwise would have been alive. And what particularly struck me was how he went to seminary to get a theological degree because he understood but wanted to be able to better articulate how Jesus' mission was a social justice mission. And because his faith informed his politics, but he didn't have the language to articulate that until he went to seminary. The last time we were together was in Charles City County. He loved Charles City County. We were there for a ribbon cutting for the Skipjack Solar Power Plant, which this body helped make possible with the Solar Freedom Bill, and which he helped continue with significant historic funding he got in the Inflation Reduction Act for clean energy and renewable energy projects. And he was stronger than he had been in a long time, but his staff was very protective, and we had to speak on a stage, and they had arranged for him to speak on the floor, and he said, "No, I'm going up on that stage because this is too important." The last conversation we had was about the need for a constitutional amendment on reproductive freedom. And Madam President, I felt him in this room when we debated that. And I knew I almost expected him to call afterwards, as he had on so many other occasions, to say, first, job well done, but second, to talk about what was next. Donald McEachin never achieved his dream of becoming president of the United States, but he did so much more than that. He touched so many lives. His legacy will live on, and I am confident that when he showed up at the pearly gates, he heard, "Well done, my good and faithful servant."
Chair recognizes Senator Normand, the gentleman from James City County.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking to the resolution.
The senator has the floor.
I was taken by the comment of the senior senator from Richmond talking about how Don McEachin touched the lives of many individuals. And I will share with you a very personal story that I don't think anyone in this body knows. You may recall back in 2003 that I was involved in a very spirited Republican primary led by a multimillionaire who had been removed from the William & Mary Board of Visitors. And that individual, to try to remind me of his influence, challenged me in a Republican primary that was the most vicious, distasteful experience of my public career. I remember that every afternoon when I would come home with my then wife, she was in tears because of the trash that was put in our mailbox criticizing me of things that or just abhorrent. When that individual lost the Republican primary, where he performed extraordinarily well at about 36% of the vote, he was still not satisfied, and he instituted a multi-million-dollar defamation lawsuit against me in the Richmond Circuit Court. And I was very blessed in that some members of the bar rallied around me to provide a defense as well as an umbrella insurance policy that I had. And it was a jury trial just down the street. And when they called me as a witness, they brought in an attorney to assist this individual in the presentation of his case. And she happened to be a defrocked judge from Newport News who embraced a certain animus against me because she thought that I had participated in her being removed. And the day before the trial, I got a phone call from Don McEachin. And Don McEachin said, "Tommy, I know that you're in the midst of a trial here and you are in my city, and I want to come and help you as a character witness." And so he came and was testifying, and this former judge cross-examined him and tried to portray some things that were not quite accurate about me. And Don's response was this. This was a lovely, bright spring day. The sun was high in the air. And Don McEachin looked at that jury and he said, "If Tommy Norman told me it was raining outside at this moment, I would not even look and I would put up an umbrella because his credibility is that high with me." Extraordinary man, extraordinary. And I've always embraced him for his courage, his forthrightness, and his objectivity.
Chair recognizes Senator Barker, the gentleman from southern Fairfax County.
Thank you, Madam President. Addressing the resolution.
The senator may say on.
Yes. In 2007, I was elected to this body, and one of the first things that when we went into session in 2008 was there were a lot of us that were elected, and 9 of us actually were elected for the first time that year. So we had a lot of new blood coming into to the Senate. I was sitting over where the senator from Northwestern Fairfax is sitting. And the senator from Fairfax City was sitting where the senator from the junior senator from Virginia Beach is sitting now. And the Don McEachin was sitting where his successor, and probably next successor again, so is sitting in that range there. And I knew Don a little bit, having been around the General Assembly and done some lobbying and various things, but I did not know him all that well. And within basically 1 week, I realized that he was someone who would make a difference in my life. And he brought to this body, I think, an integrity that, as the senator from James City County has talked, that would helped us be able to deal with the issues that we had when he was here. He quickly decided to rely on me with a number of things, and had little jobs that I was to take in to deal with on things. And he took a leap, began even in his first term here, to sort of exert a lot of leadership in this body, and to bring everybody together in doing that. He gradually, the senator from Fairfax City, I and Don McEachin moved our way around the back row here, and did a lot of things there. And when he was elected as the caucus chair for the Senate Democrats, said to me, "You're my brother from another mother, and I want you helping me." And so I put my effort into working with him to be able to facilitate what the decisions that were made in this body. It was obviously a significant loss to me when he moved on to Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., but he was always someone who was there when you needed him. And he and I, when he went to divinity school, we talked about some of those issues. My family's, my father's was a minister. I've had many relatives that were in the ministry, and we were able to compare notes on different types of things. And he also embodied the character in terms of how he would describe the issues that he was dealing with, what it would do to impact people that he knew, and what it would do to make things better for a lot of people that he did not know. And he was an outstanding person, and one of the people that I'm sure in my later years I will remember very fondly for the rest of my life.
Chair recognizes Senator Stanley, the gentleman from Franklin County.
Thank you, Madam President. Speak to the resolution.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. He was my friend. He was a giant of a man. He was brilliant, funny, persuasive. He wasn't just a giant of a man. He was a mountain masquerading as a man. When I came into this chamber, I can tell you one of the first people that came up to me was there when I was sworn in after a special election was Don McKeechin. Always in my ear, always talking. We talked about law. We talked about being lawyers. We talked about being trial lawyers. We talked about the differences in our lives, and we talked about the similarities. For Don was to the far left of my right, but you couldn't tell when we were sitting together. There's a famous picture I remember when, in my second year, I tried to close the gun show loophole. And I was kind of tired of hearing all this stuff. And I went over to Don, and there's a picture in the Richmond Times, and he's leaning back in the chair in the GAB in the committee room. And he's looking up at me, and there's the senator from Roanoke City. And Roanoke City senator's telling me, okay, we can do it this way, this way, this way. And Don looks up at me and says, "Are you nuts? What the heck are you doing? What are you doing?" And I have that picture. I have another picture in my office where he would come over here and talk all the time, and he was convinced that I would vote for something that was probably a little liberal. He always used to say, "Bill, you're a hard conservative on the outside, but you're a crunchy, chewy liberal on the inside." And I would say, "Don, you're a hardened liberal on the outside and a crunchy, chewy capitalist conservative on the inside." But on that day, I didn't vote the way he wanted, and he grabbed me by the neck. And as I'm laughing, I'm trying to get Senator Carrico, the senator from Grayson, to have him stop me. And he says, and Carrico says, "You're on your own, buddy." I framed that picture, and I gave him a copy. Bob, the photographer, took it, and I still have it in my office to this very day. And he had it in his office. But I think the moments, we have so many, and when he died, it broke my heart. I couldn't really talk about it. So I could go back through his texts, which are always poignant and funny, always informative, and always gossipy, too. The senior senator from Richmond, the city of Richmond, is exactly right. He loved political gossip. He loved to know what was going on here. And in fact, when he left here and decided he was going to run for Congress, I said, "Don, what are you doing? You got a great job. You're one of the greatest trial attorneys in Virginia. Why would you give that all up to go to Congress where you can't do anything?" And he said, "Because it's what I love the most." Public service was what he loved the most. He loved the battles. He loved the exercise. He loved the victories, and he understood the defeats, but he never gave in. He never gave up. And he always had a sunny disposition. He was not someone you wanted to tangle with on this floor in debate. He was a worthy opponent. But even after the debate, no matter who won on a vote, his side, my side, anyone else's side, he'd always come over with that big laugh, that big, huge, warm laugh, and made you realize that it wasn't personal. It was what we were supposed to be doing, and that he always had the respect of you, no matter whether you were a Republican or a Democrat. I will leave you with this. In April of 2014, I've talked about it before, it was reconvened. My wife was pregnant with our daughter. My wife was taken to the hospital, bleeding, suffering. I was not coming to reconvene. But the person that was on the phone with me, walking me through it, praying with me, talking about life, talking about love, talking about what mattered, wasn't Republican or Democrat. We talked about life and the decisions that my wife and I were making, whether to terminate or to have our child. He was right there, loving, caring, hoping. He listened. He gave me great advice. I didn't make it to reconvene that day. And our daughter died after fighting for life for 3 hours. We did not terminate. And he supported me every step of the way. At reconvene, you may remember he said, please say a prayer for me and my family. It meant a lot. He told me he was driving out. He's coming to see me. Put his big arms around me. It didn't matter what our politics were. We were human beings. As we all should be. And may that be the reminder to us all when we come into this hallowed hall in the same way that I still see him across there. As I still see him when I would play pranks on him or he on me. Because we're all human beings. And the love of what we do motivated him more than anything else. But his ability to love his fellow man, his Republican friends on the other side, demonstrated the character and integrity that he had. May we all have the character and integrity of Aston Donald McEachin. He was my friend. He will be missed. He walks with the angels now. Thank you, Madam President.
Chair recognizes Senator Locke, the gentlelady from Hampton.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking to the resolution.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I certainly considered, as we all do, Donald McEachin to have been a friend. And I'd like to share with you two quick stories. One, when he came to the Senate, I was still an active professor at Hampton University. And he sat behind me over to our right here. And normally when we were on breaks, I would be grading papers. And I taught a class that was a senior thesis class. And these were generally long papers. So I would be sitting there grading, and I always graded in red. And so as I would sit there and grade, he would come and look over my shoulder, and he would say, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm grading." He said, "That's an awful lot of red ink." And I would say, "Well, they should do what I tell them to do." And he said, "Well, please have some grace and mercy for those children." And he said, "Because it looks like you're being awfully hard on them." I said, "They need for me to be hard on them." And he said, "Grace and mercy, grace and mercy." And then he would go back and sit down, and I would continue to grade, and he would come back over, and he would look, and he said, grace and mercy for these poor little children, and because you're being awfully hard on them." And toward the end of session, he would come back, and he would say, "How did they do?" And I said, well, they're doing okay, Donald. I had a little grace and mercy, as you asked me to do. Second story, after an election season, I was with him and a group of pastors in a church, and we were kind of lamenting the outcome of the election. And he said, and this goes back to what the senior from Richmond said, he always used his theology in with his politics. And he said, you know, you have to always remember that there's the Barabbas legacy. And I said, Donald, what are you talking about? He said, remember the Barabbas legacy. He said, people don't always choose what's right for them. He said, they don't always do the right thing. They don't always choose the right thing. He said, they didn't choose Jesus that day. They don't always make the right choices. He said, so they didn't make the right choice that day. He said, but 3 days later, there was redemption. He said, so always remember that even if you don't make the right choice at that time, that there was always redemption that comes later. So while we may be sad at the moment, and we may be grieving at the moment, we can remember this Barabbas legacy right now, but there's redemption that comes later. And we simply have to deal with whatever we're dealing with right now and grieve right now, but know that redemption is coming. And live for that redemption. And he would always have little nuggets like that. And we always kept in touch, and I would always call him whenever I felt that I was having some issues, you know, herding the cats. You know, and I would text him and say, okay, what am I doing here? And he would always respond. I went up to have lunch with him, and he, you know, took me to the sacred room, the lunchroom at the Capitol. And he was just such a great and wonderful human being who certainly will be dearly missed by all of us. Thank you, Madam President.
Chair recognizes Senator Saslaw, the senior senator from Fairfax County.
I'll be very brief. I met Congressman McKeechee back in the late 1980s, so I knew him for more than 30 years. And I got to tell you, he was one of the most straight-shooting people I've ever met in my life. I mean, his integrity was absolutely impeccable. His word was gold. And, I mean, he always did what he thought was the right thing. And usually the right thing, that, as he envisioned it, exactly was that. And just very briefly, Madam President, this state and this country lost a giant of a man and one great person.
The question is, shall the resolution be agreed to? All in favor of agreeing to the memorial resolution will please rise. Is agreed to.
Senate Joint Resolution 289.
Chair recognizes Senator Donovan, the gentlelady from Enrico.
Thank you, Madam President. Speak to the resolution.
The senator may continue.
Thank you, Madam President. Jack Reed was a delegate, as we all know, for 9 terms in the House of Delegates. He was a remarkable figure in Henrico. Henrico, with his election and elections around his time, really switched from Democrat to Republican, and he took that very seriously. And he was a mentor for many electeds in Henrico over the years. But all of his service, whether it was being principal of a school or serving in the House of Delegates, was deeply rooted in his passion for family and for faith. And, he worked throughout his life to share those values. His family to this day are friends of all of us. His son, John Reed, is a reflection of those values: love of Virginia, love of America, and a passion for conservative values, as Jack was. He died this July with the blessing of having his wife, who, if you meet her and know her, says a lot about the man, as all wives do. And he was there with his children as well. And so, Madam Chairman, I move that we, of course, pass this resolution and show a great deal of respect for a man who gave his life to his community, serving with love of country and faith and family.
The question is, shall the resolution be agreed to? All those in favor of agreeing to the memorial resolution will rise. The resolution is agreed to.
Senate Joint Resolution 305.
Chair again recognizes the senior senator from Richmond, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the resolution be agreed to.
The question is, shall the resolution be agreed to? Those in favor of agreeing to the memorial resolution will rise. The resolution is agreed to.
Senate Joint Resolution 307.
Chair recognizes Senator Newman, the gentleman from Bedford.
Madam President, I move the resolution pass.
The question is, shall the resolution be agreed to? Those in favor of agreeing to the memorial resolution will please rise. The resolution is agreed to.
Commending resolutions.
Chair recognizes the senior senator from Fairfax County, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I move that the commending resolutions on page 10 through 13, that's House Resolution HJR 594 through SB 121, be considered in the block by voice vote, waiving the reading of the resolutions with the understanding that any senator desiring a resolution removed from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of the resolution.
The question is, shall the commending resolutions on pages 10 through 13, House Joint Resolution 594 through Senate Resolution 121, be considered in the block by voice vote, waiving the reading of the resolutions with the understanding that any senator desiring a resolution to be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the resolution. All those in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The resolutions are before us in the block. The clerk will now read the numbers of the resolution.
House Joint Resolutions 594, 595, 597, 598, 599, 600, 602, 603, 604, 605, 607, 608, 612. Senate Joint Resolutions 300, 301, 304, 306, 308, 309.
Madam President.
Chair recognizes Senator Lewis, the gentleman from Accomack.
Can Senate Joint Resolution 309 go by for the day, please?
Without objection, Senate Joint Resolution 309 goes by for the day.
Senate Joint Resolution 310, 312, 313, 314, 315, Senate Resolutions 116, 117, 119, 120, 121.
The question is, shall the resolutions be agreed to? That is, all resolutions except Senate Joint Resolution 309 on page 12. All in favor of agreeing to the resolutions will say aye. Those opposed, no. The resolutions are agreed to.
Returning to page 7, uncontested calendar, Senate bill on second reading, Senate Bill 800, a bill relating to appropriations.
Chair recognizes Senator Howell, the gentlelady from northern Fairfax County.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to suspend the rules and grant the privileges of the floor to members of the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee staff.
The question is, shall the rules be suspended to grant the privileges of the floor to the Senate Finance and Appropriations staff? Those in favor of that motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The rules are suspended. The privileges of the Senate are granted to the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee staff.
Madam President.
Senator Howell.
I would like to explain the procedure that we will be following today on the budget. First, the clerk will read the list of items taken out of the block. We will then vote on the uncontested committee amendments in a block. Then we will return to the committee amendments taken out of the block and take them up in order. And then we will take up any floor amendments. And if you have questions about any of the amendments or the budget, committee staff in the back here will be able to answer your question if you just go over and speak to them. Thank you, Madam President.
Committee amendments and item numbers that have been requested to be out of the block. Page 6, item 1, number 4. Page 18, item 60, number 1, and these are on your green sheets. Page 18, item 60, number 2. Page 18, item 61, number 1. Page 19, item 61, number 2. Page 19, item 61, number 3. Page 19, item 63, number 1. Page 20, item 63, number 2. Page 79. Item 274, number 1. Page 162. Item 397, number 1. Page 166. Item 404, number 2. Page 213. Item 4-5.04, number 1. Page 214. Item 4-14, number 2. Page 230. Item 4-14, number 5. Page 231. Item 4-14, number 6.
question is, Chair recognizes Senator Suderline, the gentleman from Roanoke County.
Thank you, Madam President. First, an inquiry.
The senator may state it.
If I would like to have a separate vote on item 61, number 3, and also on item 4-14, number 3, is now the appropriate time to request those be removed from the block?
As to your question, Senator, we do have on page 19, item 61.3 is already out of the block. And without objection, we do not have item number 414, number 3 out of the block, so we can do that now.
Thank you very much, Madam President.
All right. The question is, shall the uncontested committee amendments be agreed to? Those in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee amendments are agreed to. Senator Howell.
Going to page 6, item 1, number 4.
Chair recognizes Senator Barker, the gentleman from southern Fairfax County.
Thank you, Madam President. The item 1, number 4, is what we're discussing and debating now. And I make a motion to adopt the committee amendment, and speaking to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
This is a proposal establishing a joint subcommittee on gaming. There has been significant work on this issue over the last couple of years, and some of the members of this body have been very heavily involved in terms of trying to develop a gaming system for various charities to provide them with benefits, with income that can be used for their charitable purposes. And one of the things that we're having to do is to make sure that the rules that are established, the regulations that are put in place, and the oversight that is put in place will be adequate to deal with the issues. And there are members on both sides of the aisle here that are dedicated to getting this done. And I would reiterate again my motion to pass this item.
The question is, shall amendment item 1, number 4, be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee amendment is agreed to.
Page 18, item 60, number 1.
Chair recognizes Senator Peterson, the gentleman from Fairfax City.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to adopt the committee amendment and speak to the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And this committee amendment deals with a governor's budget proposal to add $500,000 in security, contract security for the protection of the Lieutenant Governor, Madam President. It's something we took a look at. We do have Capitol Police. We have not previously used contracted services for this type of security. We believe that it would be duplicative of what we have right now. $500,000 obviously is money that could be spent on other budget priorities, so it was the will of our committee to go ahead and redirect this money and continue using Capitol Police to secure Madam President and all the other members. And I move that we adopt that amendment.
The question is, shall the committee amendment for item 60, number 1, be adopted? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. Item 60, number 1, is agreed to.
Page 18, item 60, number 2.
Chair again recognizes Senator Peterson, the gentleman from Fairfax City.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt the committee amendment and speak to the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this actually is a little bit of history from the other body, which Madam President may herself remember, that in the 2002 session, it was the will of the other body to reduce the number of full-time staff supporting the lieutenant governor from 5 to 3. And I won't describe the context of that, but there was a little bit of there was a press release that had been sent out from the office of the lieutenant governor that piqued the majority leader in the other body, and a spontaneous floor amendment was handed up. And I remember there being a party line vote to basically eliminate those two positions. Now, that is not the merits of the bill. That's just the context. But what we've had since then has been 3 full-time positions on behalf of the lieutenant governor to handle her business and the business of her predecessors. And at this point, it's our considered wisdom that that is sufficient. Basically, we haven't had, believe in any compelling reason to change that. And like everybody else, we all feel somewhat overwhelmed sometimes with constituent requests, but we believe that it was best to, again, redirect that money for other priorities in the budget, and I would so move.
Chair recognizes the junior senator from Chesterfield, Senator Chase.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking to the amendment.
The senator has the floor.
Question of the patron, potentially.
Will the gentleman rise?
I yield.
The senator rises and yields. Senator Chase has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I was just curious if there had been any study done on the office of the lieutenant governor to compare what other states provide for the lieutenant governor. Is what Virginia has comparable? Is it above or below the bar?
Senator Peterson has the floor.
I would answer the gentlelady. We have done no study. No one's presented any data to us one way or the other. The only data point we have was until 2002, it was 5 full-time positions. And for the last 21 years, it's been 3 full-time positions.
Follow-up question, Madam President.
Will the gentleman yield for another question?
I yield.
Gentleman yields. Senator Chase has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. My second question would be, has any type of study been done on the current lieutenant governor's office to compare how many calls that come in per day, how many letters her office receives? Has any type of documentation been done to compare the current lieutenant governor as a port in Virginia compared to other years? Do we have any documentation that we've reviewed to come to our conclusion?
Senator Peterson has the floor.
I would answer the gentlelady. The answer is no. I will say I was on the phone a couple nights ago with the former lieutenant governor, who was my constituent, and he did not reference anything about this amendment one way or the other.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam President, speaking to the amendment.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, I appreciate how you serve our great Commonwealth, and I believe that you deserve more staff to keep you and your team safe. I know many of us who are female legislators probably have an elevated concern that a lot of people may not address, but I respect and appreciate that. And I think we need to do everything that we can to protect our statewide leaders who travel, not just here locally in the state of Virginia, but nationally as well. And I think it's important that we really seriously take a look at this. I think we should support having more staffing for our lieutenant governor. We have smaller districts, and yet we're given a budget that gives us the opportunity to have 3+ staff members, and I think we should afford that same opportunity to our Lieutenant Governor so that she can do the work and not be stressed out. Thank you.
The question is, shall committee amendment item number 60, number 2, be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee amendment is agreed to.
Page 18, item 61, number 1.
Chair recognizes Senator Peterson, the gentleman from Fairfax City.
Thank you, Madam President. And the Peterson docket would continue. This is item 61, number 1, which deals with the request from the Attorney General for $2.5 million to establish a witness protection program. I move that we adopt the committee amendment and speak to the motion. Apologize.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this is something we took a close look at in the General Government Subcommittee, and it's a pretty big new initiative to put a witness protection program in the Attorney General's office. And I'm going to get into a number of proposals from the Attorney General's office that we've at least at this point kind of deferred. We felt like it was more appropriate to move this money into DCJS and do it as a pilot program and just see if we can establish it. And as you'll hear as a theme, you know, this is an evolutionary process in the budget, but we felt like at this point that it was better off placed in DCJS as a pilot project, see how that works out, and we'll go from there. So I would again ask the committee to, ask the body to adopt our amendment.
The question is, shall amendment item 61, number 1, be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee amendment is agreed to.
Page 19, item 61, number 2.
Thank you, Madam President. Speak to the committee amendment.
Senator Peterson has the floor.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this has to do with the additional attorneys to handle appeals in the Attorney General's office. And I'm going to, again, state a theme that this is a first step in the progress. We staffed the Attorney General's office with 13 additional FTEs to handle appeals. The appeal docket load may be heavier than that. I'm still waiting to get all the data from the Attorney General's office. We're in communication. They asked for an additional $2.6 million through the governor's amendment. We want to defer that at this point until we actually get some data back and see if that's necessary. I'm not saying that a portion of this money may not be in the final budget. It may very well be. But at this point, and again, this is going to continue a theme. We feel comfortable just at this point removing this from the budget and waiting for some more hard data from the Attorney General's office. So having said that explanation, I ask that you would adopt the committee amendment.
The question is, shall the committee amendment item 61, number 3, be number 2 be adopted? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee amendment is adopted.
Page 19, item 61, number 3.
Senator Peterson.
Madam President, I rise to speak to the amendment.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I move that we adopt the amendment and speak to it. This has to do with adding an office for the Attorney General's office in Hampton Roads. Once again, this is an item that I think we're waiting on more information. Again, this could be something that we may adopt in the final budget. We just don't have the information at this point. And again, we're speaking with the Attorney General's office. You know, this was not in the biennial budget, so this is a little bit of a new item for us. But at this point, we want to remove that and just kind of keep the decks clear, and then we'll take a look at it maybe later on with the conferee. So I would ask that you adopt the committee amendment.
Chair recognizes Senator Suderline, the gentleman from Roanoke County.
Madam President, I have a question. I was looking at the report, and I thought this dealt.
Is this of the?
Yes, this is of the senator from Fairfax City.
Well, the senator from Fairfax City rise and yield.
I yield.
Senator yield. Senator Suderline.
And this is of the most honest questions. I was under the impression that this dealt with line 61 from the subcommittee that the senator chairs report, specifically dealing with 2 new positions in OAG.
No, that's coming up in a couple.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Get to that. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I'm answering this.
Understood, Senator. The question is, shall committee amendment item 61, number 3, 60,
No, it's
61, number 3. 61, number 3, be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee amendment is agreed to.
Page 19, item 63, number 1.
Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt the committee amendment and speak to the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the body, this is going to be my last 2 amendments, but they're both going to be similar in themes in that we have pending legislation that has yet to get to final version, and I think it's fair to say that the cannabis laws are really kind of up in the air right now. The governor had asked to put in $500,000 roughly to add 5 positions for cannabis enforcement. I think until we know what the final form of the bill is going to be that we've passed through this body, it's a little bit premature to fund these positions. We're still trying to figure out exactly what the framework is of cannabis and cannabis enforcement. So it was the subcommittee's considered opinion that we defer this for now. And again, we may take this up at a later time, but that's our position for right now. And I'd ask that the body adopt the amendment.
The question is, shall item 63, number 1, be adopted? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is adopted.
Page 20, item 63, number 2.
Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt the committee amendment and speak to the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this is the last one. It's $253,000 that was proposed by the governor for 2 positions on utility ratepayer advocacy. And you're probably asking, why are you taking that out? And I've even had people say, why don't you resign from the Senate and actually fill that position? But the bottom line is, and as you probably know, we just passed a piece of legislation from my former law partner to the right here, which I think is, again, this is up in the air whether or not that makes it to the finish line, whether or not these advocacy positions would be with CEUR or with SCC or with the AG's office. You know, as I've expressed many times, I'd rather have it with the SCC. But the bottom line is I think we're going to hold off on this. I do think that, again, ratepayer advocacy is critical. I know from just talking to people in general, and this is going to be one of our biggest issues over the next few years, I do think we're going to probably fill this position. It's a question of which agency we use, and I think at this point, again, I want to defer on that question. So I would ask that the body support the amendment. And by the way, I apologize if I'm sort of stumbling a little bit. I'm nervous because I got a constituent filming me up in the chamber there. But anyways, ask that the body support the amendment.
Chair recognizes Senator Suderline, the gentleman from Roanoke County.
Thank you, Madam President. It pained me to hear the senator from Fairfax City speak for removing money.
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
To address the budget amendment, ma'am.
Senator may continue.
Thank you. Yes, it hurt to hear the senator from Fairfax City speak about removing resources to defend, that are used to defend ratepayers in these legal disputes at the State Corporation Commission. The legislation that came from his seatmate over there is about creating a new position over with the commission, and they are supposed to give us advice on what we ought to do. And I thought that the senator from Fairfax City was right when he spoke against that very proposal the other day, and I joined him in speaking against it. But the Attorney General is unique in our process in that they have a constitutional obligation to stand up for captive ratepayers at the State Corporation Commission. And I would hope that we all recognize how difficult of a time it is for ratepayers, and also how difficult it is to go against the very well-resourced corporations that have a fiduciary obligation to shareholders to maximize profits when they're in those very disputes about these things. So I hope that we will defeat this measure and restore the $253,000 in the budget so that we can have these two important positions for the captive ratepayers of Virginia.
The question is, does the gentleman wish to speak?
Do you mind if
I don't mind at all.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
The senator may continue.
I would just like to respond to the gentleman. And again, this is an evolutionary process. I do think we need more ratepayer advocacy. I believe that very strongly. Again, we've got a lot of issues up in the air. I have a sneaking suspicion that we will see if we can get these back in a final conference. But the bottom line is, in order for us to have the best position going into conference, I ask that we reject this amendment, keep the decks clean, and like I said, this cause will not go unadvocated. Thank you.
The question is, shall the committee amendment item 63, number 2, be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee amendment is agreed to. Is agreed to.
Page 79.
8 hands. This will be a recorded vote. The question is, shall amendment item 63, number 2, be agreed to? Those in favor of that motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 23, no 17.
Ayes 23, no 17. That committee amendment item is agreed to.
Page 79. Item 274, number 1.
Chair recognizes Senator Barker, the gentleman from Southern Fairfax County.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the adoption of item 274, number 1, and speaking to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Yes, Madam President, members of the body here, what this amendment does is it provides a $1.5 million in general funds in the second year of the biennium, which will start in July of 2023 and go through June 30th of 24. And this would have this $1.5 million being used to create and fill 10 positions at the Department of Taxation, to increase the capacity regarding tax compliance, to pursue fraud and other tax evasion due to increased enforcement efforts by the federal government. The fiscal implications of it, there are projections that roughly $350,000 per year to $450,000 per year in revenue would be added to the Commonwealth's resources with each desk audit that would be implemented by these 10 individuals. And I repeat my motion again to adopt this item.
The question is, shall item 274, number 1, be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee item 274, number 1, is agreed to.
Page 162, item 397, number 1.
Chair recognizes Senator Lucas, the gentlelady from Portsmouth.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the committee amendment, and that is on item number 397, number 1S, be agreed to.
The senator has the floor.
Speaking to that, Madam President, the committee provides $6.6 million in non-general funds the second year and 28 positions to support the Cannabis Control Authority to establish a regulatory program for legal retail cannabis sale in the Commonwealth. The Cannabis Control Authority is authorized to collect fees to support operations for retail cannabis pursuant to Senate Bill 1133 and medical cannabis pursuant to Senate Bill 788. The authority has a general fund appropriation of $8.2 million in fiscal year 2024, combined with at least $2.6 million general funds from prior year's appropriations. And with that explanation, Madam President, I move that the committee amendment, and that is with item 397, number 1S, be agreed to.
The question is, shall item 397, number 1, be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. Item 397, number 1, is agreed to.
On page 166, item 404, number 2.
Chair again recognizes Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that committee amendment item 404, number 2S, be agreed to. And speaking to that,
the senator has the floor.
Right, Madam President, what it does, it provides $5 million general fund for the second year to lower the cost of communications for inmates. This amendment partially funds implementation of Senate Bill 1274, which would provide unlimited free communications for inmates. The language directs the department to explore low-cost options as it procures its communication contract and to provide a report to the General Assembly before issuing the new contract. According to the Prison Policy Initiative, research shows that increased contact with family decreases prison misconduct and reduces recidivism. And so with that, Madam President, again, I renew my motion to have the committee amendment, and that is with item 404, number 2S, be agreed to.
The question is, shall item 404, number 2S, be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee amendment is agreed to.
On page 213, item 4-5.04, number 1.
Chair recognizes Senator Howell, the gentlelady from Southern Fairfax County.
Thank you, Madam President. This item will continue the same funding for Medicaid for abortions that has been the case in Virginia for decades now. And I would move that we agree to this amendment.
The question is, shall that amendment item be agreed to? Those in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is agreed to.
On page 214, item 4-14, number 2.
Chair recognizes Senator McClellan, the senior senator from Richmond.
Thank you, Madam President. This is an amendment that is similar to, or identical actually, to legislation that passed this body earlier in the day, allowing any locality, in addition to the 9 that currently have the authority to impose a up to 1% sales tax, if approved by voters by referendum, for the purpose of funding school construction. And I move the amendment.
Chair recognizes Senator Suderline, the gentleman from Roanoke County.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking briefly to the amendment.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. This amendment looks a lot like a bill because that's what it is, and I don't think we ought to be doing this. I understand that sometimes the situation is such that the conference report or items that come down from the governor sometimes have to deal with legislation because that's where we are in the process and that's the only way. But I don't think that we should start off, today's basically the beginning of the legislative role in this. We should not start off the Senate's role by legislating through the budget. And it's disappointing to me that we'd seek to do this. There's a bill that I disagreed with, but the majority of our current membership supported, and it's currently down the hall being considered in the House of Delegates, and I think that's the way it ought to be. I do not think that we should embed legislation inside our chamber's budget.
Chair again recognizes Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. We have at times put in the budget legislation that relates to funding, and this is the more funding that localities can raise on their own for school construction and renovation, the less they will need to depend on the state for such funding. And typically, while I have never had the privilege of being on the conference committee, it is my understanding that if something is not in either the Senate or the House budget, it doesn't have any chance of being in the conference report. So this is not setting any new precedent.
The question is, shall the amendment be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is agreed to.
On page,
I see 8 hands. This will be a recorded vote. Shall committee amendment item 4-14 number 2 be agreed to? Those in favor will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 23, noes 14.
Ayes 23, noes 14. The amendment is agreed to.
On page 230, item 4-14, number 3.
Madam President.
Chair again recognizes Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. This relates to legislation that was passed unanimously by the House and the Senate during the special session, creating the school construction fund and program. There's a little constitutional question about whether bills that were enacted during the special session or that passed during the special session were actually enacted, because one body adjourned, sine die, and the other did not. So to clear up that constitutional question, this amendment was put in to make clear that that act of assembly that was passed unanimously by both bodies is in fact enacted. And I move the amendment.
The question is, shall item 4-14 number 3 be agreed to? Those in favor of that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The item is agreed to.
On page 230, item 4-14, number 5.
Madam President.
Chair again recognizes Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the amendment and speaking to that.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. This amendment repeals the enactment in amending the Code of Virginia to expand the definition of entities that were eligible to establish a lab school. The enactment language in Chapter 2 of the 2022-24 Appropriations Act amends a current code section to expand that definition in conflict with the conditions in item 37, paragraph C44, in their definition of the lab school. So that is the reason for the amendment, and I move that amendment.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee amendment is agreed to.
On page 231, item 4-14, number 6.
Chair again recognizes Senator Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I move item 4-14, number 6. And speaking to that
The
motion,
senator has the floor.
This is a technical amendment, and it deals with the enactment clause. The situation is that in this sort of the tail end of the budget on item 4, we have to have updates of the list of enactments that shall have no expiration date on the sections of the code being amended or reenacted in Part 4. This action is necessary when enactments in Part 4 amend and reenact sections of the Code of Virginia. If this action were not to be included, the enactments in Part 4 would expire when the budget expires. In this case, that would be June 30, 2024. But what we have is a mechanism to be able to keep alive those enactments that we want to continue beyond the expiration of this budget. And with that, I'll renew my motion to adopt item 4-14, number 6.
The question is, shall the item be adopted? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The item is adopted.
We have 3 floor amendments.
Chair calls on Senator Edwards, the gentleman from Roanoke City.
Madam President, I withdraw both of my floor amendments.
Without objection, floor amendments number 1 and number 2 are withdrawn. Chair calls on Senator Obenshain, the gentleman from Rockingham County.
Madam President, I move that we waive the reading of floor amendment number 3.
Is that number 1? I have a number 1. Yes. The question is, shall the Obenshain Amendment item 379 number 1S, the reading of it be waived? Those in favor of waiving the reading will say aye. Those opposed, no. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. Senator Obenshain.
Madam President, I move the adoption of this floor amendment. Speaking to it.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, this floor amendment, for the comfort of my friend from Roanoke County and maybe a couple of others, does not legislate in the budget. This amendment simply directs the State Air Pollution Control Board to take certain actions that will delay or stop administrative action to link Virginia's upcoming ban on the sale of gas-powered vehicles to California's imposed standards. I think everybody is familiar with the implications and the challenges that lie before us, the impossibility of meeting the deadlines that have been set. So, Madam President, I again move passage.
Chair recognizes Senator Marsden, the gentleman from Western Fairfax County.
Thank you, Madam President. I would ask that we reject the floor amendment. And speaking to that recommendation?
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. The floor amendment prohibits the state air pollution control board from adopting model year standards for new vehicle emissions or requiring a new vehicle to be certified as compliant with California emissions control standards. This was addressed by Senate Bill 779, and this bill was passed by indefinitely in the Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources Committee on an 8-7 vote. The requirement for the state Air Pollution Control Board, which this attempts to overturn, to promulgate final regulations for an advanced clean cars program that includes low-emission vehicles and zero-emission vehicles, beginning with the 2025 model year, was enacted by the 2021 General Assembly, Special Session 1. This is the law at this time. I think it needs to remain where it is. I have confidence in Virginia that we can meet the standards of this Clean Car Act and make Virginia air cleaner and healthier for all of us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The question is, shall floor amendment number 1, the Obenshain amendment, be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The amendment is not agreed to. I see 8 hands. This will be a recorded vote. Those in favor of agreeing to the amendment will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
17, noes 22.
Aye 17, noes 22. The amendment is rejected. Chair recognizes Senator Peterson, the gentleman from Fairfax City. All right. Chair recognizes Senator Howell, the gentlelady from Northern Fairfax County.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the rules be suspended and that the third constitutional reading of the title of the bill be dispensed with.
The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the third constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with? Those in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The rules are suspended and the third constitutional reading is dispensed with. Senator Howell.
Thank you, Madam President. Before I make the final motion, I would like to express the appreciation of the Senate Finance Committee, and I'm sure the whole Senate, to our wonderful staff under the direction of April Keyes. Thank you. And now, Madam President, I would like to move that the bill pass.
The chair recognizes Senator McPike, the gentleman from Prince William.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe now the time would be to note any abstentions.
Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you. Rise for an abstention.
The gentleman may continue.
Madam President, I'm abstaining pursuant to Rule 36 on item 386, but voting on Senate Bill 800 as a whole.
Thank you, Senator. It will be so noted. Senator Sorovell, the gentleman from Eastern Fairfax County.
Thank you, Madam President. I am abstaining pursuant to Rule 36 on item 375, but voting on Senate Bill 800 as a whole.
Thank you, Senator. It will be so noted. Senator McDougall, the gentleman from Hanover.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I am abstaining pursuant to Rule 36 on item number 206 and item number 208, but voting on Senate Bill 800 as a whole.
Thank you, Senator. It will be so noted. Senator McClellan, the senior senator from Richmond.
Thank you, Madam President. I am abstaining pursuant to Rule 36 on item 115, but voting on SB 800 as a whole.
Thank you, Senator. It will be so noted. Senator Lucas, the gentlelady from Portsmouth.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I am abstaining pursuant to Rule 36 on items 104, item 304, number 9S, item 308, number 13S, and item 397, number 1S, but voting on Senate Bill 800 as a whole.
Thank you, Senator. It will be so noted. Senator DeSteff, the senior senator from Virginia Beach.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I'm abstaining pursuant to Rule 36 on item 106 and item number 1, item 1, number 4S on page 6, but voting on SB 800 as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Peterson, the gentleman from Fairfax City.
Thank you, Madam President. I am will be voting on the Senate budget bill as a whole, but abstaining on item 365.50, number 1S, and item 106.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Edwards, the gentleman from Roanoke City.
Madam President, I am abstaining pursuant to Rule 36 on item 365.50 at number 1S, but I'm voting on Senate Bill 800 as a whole.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Normand, the gentleman from James City County.
Thank you, Madam President. I am abstaining pursuant to Rule 36 on item 365.51S, but voting on Senate Bill 800 as a whole.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Peterson, just to be sure, you are using Rule 36 for the record. Thank you, sir. The question is, shall the bill... One more. Chair recognizes Senator Saslaw, the senior senator from Fairfax County.
Madam President, I'm abstaining on pursuant to Rule 36 on item 136, but voting on SB 800 as a whole.
Thank you, Senator. It will be so noted. Senator Howell.
Madam President, I repeat my motion that the bill pass.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 32, noes 8.
Ayes 32, noes 8. The bill passes. Chair recognizes the senior senator from Fairfax County, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I inquire of the clerk, does this complete the calendar for today?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Senator Peterson, the gentleman from Fairfax City.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for an announcement.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, we need to get our act together for the basketball. Right now, I've only raised $1,300 out of $10,000. I know I did get your check, Senator Boysko, but please bring a check in on Monday if you haven't already. Otherwise, you will be on the dreaded list outside my door at room 517. Thank you very much.
$250. Chair calls on Senator Donovan, the gentlelady from Enrico.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I want you all to know what a joy it is to be an OBGYN. To be in the room when a baby is born and see the father tear up and the mother look at her baby and grab that baby up to her chest, it chokes me up every time. It's absolutely beautiful. And I want you to know that I had a really special delivery 14 years ago today. And, I look like I'm in trouble.
Points of personal
Thank
privilege, it's to be noted, we are to remain seated.
Thank you, Madam President. In any case, beautiful baby boy, 6 pounds, 7 ounces. And today, Madam Chairman, we can celebrate with him because he is one of our pages, Edward Huff Mullen II. And I hope we can wish him a very, very happy birthday from the entire Senate. And there he is, pink, over on the side.
Chair recognizes Senator Cosgrove, the senior senator from Chesapeake.
Thank you, Madam President. Very short personal privilege, please.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. Last night was the sing-out at the Pale House Corral. We had a great time with the Capitol Correspondents' Dinner. Senator Peterson and I were lucky enough to be asked to entertain, which I think we did. Again, with a competition, it ended in a draw. Again. But I will say that as in last year, Senator Peterson's wife, Sharon, I declared the winner. This year, I declared a tie between Sharon and my wife, Sue, because they were smart enough not to sing and just stand on the floor. But I want to thank Senator Peterson. He did a great job. He sung under difficult circumstances. He got up there and something went wrong with the music track. He did it a cappella. Yeah. So let's hear it for Rockstar Chap.
Chair recognizes Senator Hanger, the gentleman from Augusta.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a short announcement to make.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening at 5 o'clock over in the Pocahontas building, 5th floor, room 2, the Rural Caucus is meeting again. So all of you all who would like to gather on behalf of rural Virginia and talk about rural and urban and suburban issues, we'd be pleased to have you. We're honored this evening. We're going to have a full agenda with Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Shep Miller. We're going to have the Secretary of Health there with us, Secretary Littell, and the Secretary of Education, Secretary Gadara. So if any of y'all would want to put direct questions to these people after we hear them briefly speaking, we'd be pleased to have you at the Rural Caucus meeting. Thank you.
Is there any other business to come before the Senate? Hearing none, the clerk will report any announcements on the desk.
Today, Thursday, February 9th, 2023, the Committee on Transportation will meet 15 minutes after adjournment in Senate Room 3 in the Capitol. The Education and Health Subcommittee on Public Education will not meet. This is a schedule change. The Rural Caucus will meet at 5 o'clock p.m. in Subcommittee Room 2, 5th floor, Pocahontas. Tomorrow, Friday, February 10th, 2023, the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services will meet at 8 o'clock a.m. in Senate Room A, Pocahontas. The Committee on Rules will meet at 10 o'clock a.m. in Senate Room 3 in the Capitol. The Democratic Caucus will meet 1/2 hour before session in Senate Room 1 in the Capitol. The Republican Caucus will meet 1/2 hour before session in Senate Room 2 in the Capitol.
Chair calls on Senator Lucas, the gentlelady from Portsmouth.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
The question is, shall the Senate adjourn until 11 a.m. tomorrow? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The Senate stands adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.